Fox News does not understand the single-payer healthcare system. Let's show them why.
Is Medicare for All bound to go the way of Republicans' failed promise to repeal and replace? Here with me now to discuss it's Tim Carney, the Washington Examiner commentary editor and American Enterprise Institute visiting fellow. Tim, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Kennedy.
So what is the worst case scenario with Medicare for All?
The worst case scenario for healthcare for all is it gets underfunded and it doesn't work as well as it should.
The worst case scenario is that the government, because they are paying our bills with taxpayers' money, gets in the business of telling us how to be healthy.
It gets in our business trying to help us be healthy. That's a bad thing? They're not forcing us.
The fact is, Kennedy, every donut you eat, you're now paying for the health care costs. Under Medicare for All, under single payer, then I will be paying for it.
Every donut you eat will cost you more under universal health care and not under the private sector. How do you know this? You're just making it up.
I, or Kamala Harris, then gets to tell you not to eat it.
Under the single-payer healthcare system, they do not dictate what you eat and what you cannot eat. They might suggest not eating fatty foods or certain types of foods, but they're not going to enforce them. It's not like a law.
I'm worried about them saying, well, 3 kids is fine, but any more than that is a little excessive because that's more healthcare people.
It's also more people to be taxed. Only in like countries like China where they have an overpopulation problem are they going to say anything about that, and they're not going to like force it on you. What does that have to do with healthcare?
When government is that involved in the most intimate aspect of the economy, which is healthcare, then you're going to have an increase in government control over our daily lives. And that's my main concern.
The government will have more control over healthcare in America if we go with a single-payer healthcare system. It won't have control over your normal life, only when you go into the hospital.
That is absolutely it, and that's why you saw Michelle Obama's well-intended food policies.
Oh no, well-intended food policies
Take effect in our nation's public schools, hand in hand at the same time as her husband's Health Care Act was passed in this country, and that's exactly right. And taxpayers should be going, if I am paying for it, why should I be funding the bad choices of individuals?
You're not funding their habits. You're funding the healthcare system to get them better. You see the difference?
And that can become extremely problematic. It's also interesting politically because Democrats, I guess those who want to be president, have chosen this issue as a winning one for them.
Yep.
It is a winning issue. Any candidate who uses that should be considered because America is the only industrial nation not to have a single-payer healthcare system or some kind of government-funded system. It's really ridiculous we don't have one by now.
Tell me about that.
Well, it's the idea that the primaries are about playing to the base of the party. And the base of the party is liberal, and that they, if you remember, it was the Democratic primaries in 2008. It was Hillary and Barack hashing over who was going to provide the better sort of government-supported, government-regulated healthcare system. And now they're doing this. They're just turning it up to 11. That the play is to the base to show that you are a real hardcore progressive. The issue that's at the intersection of economics and sort of cultural issues is this single-payer thing.
The single-payer thing, it's so silly,
This is where they can go ahead and whether Bernie Sanders doesn't have as much cred on the culture wars or Kamala Harris doesn't have as much cred on the sort of left-wing economic agenda, here they both sort of reach into a spot that fits both of those brands. It's the intersection of the cultural and the economic left-wing thing to win the base in the primary.
He's talking about some intersectional thing. It's the right thing to do, regardless who says it is or isn't. It is. It's the right thing to do. Look at all the other countries. America is the odd man out. It's ridiculous.
I understand that. And oftentimes the argument that they make is, look at the rest of the industrialized world. They all have socialized medicine. Look at Sweden. Look at all of Scandinavia. Look at Western Europe.
Yeah, look at the industrialized world. America is the only one not to have a government-funded healthcare system because the insurance companies lobby for it because they make a lot of money off of the sick.
But you make a much more important point, which is the rest of the world looks to us. How?
I like how she just completely dismisses that line of questioning. She was going in the right direction and just took a 180.
Well, they count on us for medical innovation.
Yeah, because America is the only country to have medical innovation.
Because markets is where innovation gets created. And I'm a firm believer that we need a safety net for healthcare.
Okay, then why don't we have one? We don't have one in America. We don't have a safety net.
For sick people. Jesus made that very clear in the Bible with the Good Samaritan story. But there should be a market with a safety net, and the market is what drives the innovation. So these other countries where it's all one big safety net, there's not the money pouring in that guides innovation. And if you say, oh, well, the government can fund it, I mean, I don't think anybody has a lot of confidence in the ability for the government to pick better than the market does.
The market makes money off of sick people. They want people to be sick so they can make money. The government, the only incentive the government has is for the people to get better. Big conflict of interest.
The private sector is what drives innovation.
That's untrue.
And so far the rest of the world is sort of piggybacking on American innovation. So if then we step onto the same boat as Canada or onto the universal health care, all government provided, God forbid, like England.
Oh, heaven forbid, not like England.
Then I think you'll see the medical innovation dry up, and then that won't be good for the health of anyone.
No, and you'll see generations will suffer the consequences of cratering positions that are no longer held by the best and brightest.
Can you name one? Name one person who's the best and the brightest on healthcare.
You want the best researchers, you want the best doctors, you want the best caregivers.
You can have all those things under a single payer system, Fox.
How do you do that? You incentivize them to come into medical fields by maybe at some point making a good living. It's crazy how that happens.
You can have a good living getting paid by the government in a single payer healthcare.
Yeah, so but I ultimately have to say, though, when I look at government-run healthcare, not the Medicare for All, but the England version, again, we get back to the basic moral issue. You look at the boy, Charlie Gard, who died, the government would not let his parents try to keep him alive for a few more months. That's the real problem. It's the moral problem when the government is in charge of our healthcare.
And you will see more and more stories like that in this country. Tim Carney, thank you so much.
So they're bringing up this older case about how a kid was in a coma in England and the government pulled the plug on him. It's a sad story, but that doesn't represent universal health care. It's one bad case. I agree that was not the right decision. However, you can't just throw out all of universal health care because of one bad case. I'm sure I could find plenty of cases in the private sector that went horribly bad. Does that mean we should instantly jump on board on universal health care? So Fox News didn't really know what they were talking about. They just kind of rambled on for most of it and lied for the other time. Hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.